Welcome back, subscribers. This is going to be a video about trust, specifically about starting new businesses and relationships with people. But I'm going to be talking about accounting specifically. So that's ultimately what this video is. So it's short. But it's basically some things that I've been running into and finding that this is going to be tough for a lot of people, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it. So the crypto industry, since it's all started to come in, there is a lot of interest in it, and people have been just holding the tokens and keeping them in their wallet. Maybe they do a little bit of trading, etc. And then whenever they come to maybe they haven't, there's a lot of people that haven't actually gone through traditional accounting, that they're like, they're of that old school thing, or the crypto thinking, where it's like, I'm my own bank, right? Which was true, but they're like, I can do whatever I want. It's freedom money, all this other horse shit, and be like, no. Some of the people that I've talked to on the upper higher levels of the bankers, and I'm talking like people that have been in the White House. All right, so I got to rub elbows with some people that were very high up in this industry because of going to digital assets at Duke. And that was just one element of it. But I've talked to other people, through email and phone calls and Zoom calls and things like that, that are interrelated into the space. And it's like, no, there's way too much energy behind it. And that this thing is full steam ahead. Absolutely. Whether it's on, you can hate on the World Economic Forum, International Bank of Settlements, whatever. All of these different industries, if you put the name in of whatever the industry is, the people that you don't really like and you don't like the control factor, and you put crypto after it, you're going to find all this stuff, like that they're all into it. So it is part of this new system. So it's just, it doesn't have any, there's not really any defined rules of it yet. All right. And Franklin had brought this up a couple of days ago, because I told him, I was like, venting, and I'm just like, Franklin's my partner. I said, the problem with this, I said, is whenever you get into this frontier land of something that's new, I said, people that are of the old way, I said, they don't want to move. And I said, but that is by design of the system administrators, because they know that whenever they change the rules and bring in something new, it's a feeding frenzy for them, because that means that nobody else is wanting to get into it, because they're not being open-minded enough to be able to take a chance and be like, oh, it's high risk, and be like, but the people at the top that are administrating it, they know that it's not high risk, because they're the ones that are creating the new rules and creating the new space for business to run in the future. So it's a feeding frenzy for them, because there's all kinds of options for them, because nothing is defined. All right. So if you think about frontier land, you're thinking about wagons, wagon trains, no laws, shootouts in streets. Oh, it's a fair fight, and you just go murder somebody in the street, because they didn't have courthouses, et cetera, inside these boom towns and things, these expansive frontier lands, towns. So they didn't have the rules. They had like rules of the frontier, and inside of that they had lawlessness. So even like if you had like bounties, and as things started to get more established in the West, then you would have a mayor, a governor, or something like that, right? You'd have somebody that is handling it. Then you have a judiciary system, you have a judge, and so on and so on. But in the beginning, there isn't any need for it, because there just isn't enough interest in it. That's where we are right now in crypto. So what does that mean? That means that in the accounting side, if it's not defined, accountants don't want anything to do with it. Traditional accountants do not want anything to do with it, because there's no black and white information on how to structure it so they can do their businesses. So if you are with an accountant, I was with one for 20 years, like I said, they don't want to deal with it. They're like, I was told you're going to have to just find somebody else that wants to deal with this. So then I have to go start a new relationship with somebody right out of the, from scratch. And whenever you foster these relationships in business, there's trust that happens, because they know, like, I'm going to pay this person and they're going to do my work. And, you're out there, like, the best way to describe that feeling is like you're a ship on the ocean, and you're all by yourself. There's no land, there's no other ships or anything around you, and you need to find somebody else that can handle your business. So then you start like courting all of these different people to try to find somebody that is willing to go along with your basic business philosophy, and that the two of you can work together. Because the ones I've talked to, I said, well, I said, basically, I said, this is really tough. I said, because since I'm not part of a secret society, and I can't just call up the phone and call one of my brothers or somebody that's inside the order and say like, hey, do you know an accountant that can handle this? I'll be, oh yeah, talk to this guy, right? And there are environments that inside these network environments that do it, but what I'm finding is that they are even ill advised, that they're not following what is actually available to them. Okay, for example, so we just had experience with somebody that was supposedly a very high up and somebody that was really well connected, but they had to create their own accounting firm out of this, and we were near to being affiliated with them, but things just weren't working out because I didn't like the way that they were doing business. So it wasn't about the philosophy of the accounting side and being able to identify how crypto is supposed to be keyed on a balance sheet. It was internal stuff that just wasn't going to work out. But philosophy wise is absolutely correct. So then I start going out and hunting other people to try to fill this void. And I'm finding like, man, it's like they ultimately, what the hang up is because you're into this frontier gray zone of no clarity. Accountants that are established, especially CPAs, they they can't in good faith, or don't want to. They could, but they in good faith they don't want to stick their neck out because there isn't regulatory framework to tell them they can do it. Even though, I've said, I was like, well, if just because it doesn't say you can't do it doesn't mean that you you can't do it. I said, if there's no framework that says that no law that says like, well, there's no speed limit on this road, officer. And then in states they'll say like, well, if there's no speed limit posted, the maximum speed limit goes 55, right? They don't have that for crypto. All right, it's designated as property. In my background, I was like, that's it. It's designated as property, period. So again, if you look at this from a legal perspective and say, if it's designated as property, then what kicks in is Danny's 30 plus year experience in the building industry, whether it's building it from scratch from a bare patch of earth, to remodeling it, to selling it, to renting it, you name it, the all legal elements that have to do with all of those pieces and parts. And with that much time and experience into it, I've run into so many different legal elements that are involved in it. Plus, I had to know that because of being a licensed general contractor in the state of North Carolina. You got to know those things. So I start plugging this stuff in, all of my past experiences and understanding the legal side of it into crypto. And I was like, well, if it's designated as property, then all it is it's the same thing, only it just settles faster. So that would mean that the capital gain side of it, if I'm doing it through a corporation, is different. If I'm buying and selling property as a company opposed to a personal, then the rules are a little bit different, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to set myself up to do this. And there's a gigantic tax advantage by doing this. And that's the reason why people that have a lot of money, they're in real estate. There's a reason why, because there's essentially a tax deferral that's inside of it. The problem with real estate is that it's difficult to sell something and then get right in and buying something in the same calendar year. Where they catch you inside of the real estate industry is that deals take a lot longer to get going and get the deal done. And then to buy another property there's a lot of fees and things like that are associated with it. And, real estate fees and brokerage fees and things like that. And it's a lot of expenses. And when I started looking at crypto as a house, I was like, it's just like, if they say it's property, then it's like it could be a big house or a little house, right? And depending upon whatever the transaction is. So every time that I transact with Bitcoin or one of the other ones, I said it's currently right now, it's designated as like a house, all right? Even though I can't put my hands around it, it's property. So I was like, well, then it carries the same legal element, as that's the argument. As long as you can make an argument and there is nothing defined. It doesn't say like otherwise, like you need to pay XYZ taxes inside of a corporation, and it's designated as property. I'm going to apply the property rules that I know for 30 plus years into the same asset. Okay, just because it's something that's digital, something that's new, but this is what you guys have done to define. Be like, well, because you guys haven't said anything and there is no clarity, and we're in this gray zone, then that's my argument. So every time I've heard guys say like, oh, every time you make a transaction with it, it's a capital gain, and be like, yeah, but all I'm doing is redistributing uh, gains into another asset. I said, so I'm just swapping assets back, and it'd be like, no, 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 you can't do that. If you put it into dollars, I'm like, horse shit. I was like, if I buy, let's say, a piece of heavy equipment and it's $10,000, I keep it for a couple of years and now it's worth 15, it went up in value, and I sell it, I made a capital gain of $5,000. I said, and then I take that $5,000, that $15,000, and I buy another piece of equipment. All right, I level up. I said, in that same calendar year, whenever I took that profit in, I said the balance sheet shows no capital gain because I've offset the income. I say, I've run this through all kinds of my AI, and I'm like, is this? Why are they not reading into this? Why is it that people are just throwing the brakes on it? Because it's the King Kong thing. That's what's going on. It's so powerful, moves so fast. We don't know how to handle it. So we're going to do it like some shitheads have decided that, yeah, every time that you transact with it, that we're going to treat it the same on a personal level as a corporate level. And I'm like, that's retarded. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. So I've said, well, so now it puts me in a situation. So I need to find somebody to do taxes. I was like, I'm moving forward, and I'm getting into RWAs, tokenizing property. And I was like, I need somebody that can handle this. And I'm like, guinea pig me. I'm like, I could care less. I was like, I've been audited twice. I've talked to some of these guys. I'm like, I've been audited twice. I said, I've fought the IRS. I said, you don't have to take any responsibility for it. I said, and I don't even have to pay you direct. I said, it'll make it look like a transaction, like you're consulting for me. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to get into doing that. And I'm like, what do you have to lose? What if you learn something about the industry? Be like, and they're like, well, how can you be so sure? Be like, that's my risk and that's my decision to make. So right now I'm in this transitory period where I'm like, I'm trying to find somebody that is not of an order, that is just out there, right? That to prove that yes, you can find somebody, and this is the way that I did it. This is the way that you're going to be taking a certain amount of risk moving forward when you get into some kind of business. All right. And this particular the rules that are behind this settlement tool have not yet been defined. So from a legal precedent, if nothing has been defined, nothing can be prosecuted. So you have to understand that. And when you talk on this level to these institutional professionals, whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, anybody that's inside something that has some sort of accreditation that's of the government or something to that effect, they don't want to deal with it. They don't want this. Another one is that this is so similar to what's going on right now in the regulatory environment with crypto is during 2020 to about 2023, when the doctors were going by what the CDC was saying about what they should do, because they have all of this, follow the science and all this other shit that was going on during that period, and be like, there wasn't any, and you assholes just because you're institutions and you're following an oath. Again, it's the same thing. Whether it's a secret society oath or you're an MD, right? You have your medical license, or you've passed the bar exam, or you're a CPA. You're of the same relative order structure, okay? That institutional structure. So they don't do any shorthanded deals. You don't go in the office and be like, hey, Joe, I've known you for 25 years. Be like, yeah, well, everybody's taken this inoculation, so that means that we got to do it, right? Be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh, okay. Okay, well, Normie Joe, well, that's not going to work for me moving forward in the frontier. However it worked over in the East Coast where we have established cities, and I'm cutting across the country on a wagon train or by myself on a horse, be like, anything goes. And if whatever I have to do to survive, I'm doing it. I'm not sticking to the rules of the road when there aren't any out in this territory. That's what crypto is right now. That's what you have to wrap your head around. So that's the mountain that you have to climb and get over that hump of being like, it's a risk. If you decide to like sell your house and move cross country, 150 years ago and make it out west because you want opportunity, well, guess what? Like it's super dangerous. You're taking a risk on. Crypto is not that dangerous, all right, but it has the same parallels. Do you see what I mean? There's a section that I did on our private site, and it's ReservoirHuman.com, and we have a paid private site where I get into like stuff that I can't really talk about in the public eye, because there's liability issues and things like that, and I need to have a transaction in order to be able to let you in on it, so that like I removed my liability out of the equation. Whereas this, anybody can see it as public, so it's privatized. Anyway, it's just understanding the legal framework and moving forward to keep yourself out of liability risk. So, inside of that is a kind of a mini series that I did, and it's called the Carolina Connection, and it basically covers how the United States got started. All right, in the South. All right, Southeast. And inside that are these pirates and profiteers. They were never called pirates. They were called profiteers, all right? And the privateers or profiteers there were no rules and regulations, so it was anything goes. And it turned into piracy, where they were just making up their own rules and things like that. But it took hundreds of years in order to be able to have rules and legislation. And then that's the reasons why they drafted the documents in the United States, because it was like an anything goes thing. Like, let's create a new territory. Be like, oh, Danny, I've never heard that before. It was about freedom from the king. Be like, right, but the king got tired of all of the profiteers stealing from the king. So be like, well, now if you own it, you're only going to be stealing from yourself. We need the new territory for food and goods and things like that, and shipping. And everybody can make money at it, but you've got some people in here that are just they're playing with the system, all right. And that's part of the reason why the United States was created, all right, in the first place. So the War of 1812 establishing shipping rules and things like that. So, but it's never talked about. They don't talk about it. They patriotic with the kid with the drums and the the piccolo and the whole thing. Like George Washington. I get it. It's so romantic. It's great, but it was about business, all right? It's about business. So that's happening right now. And to be able to find somebody that is willing to take a little bit of risk, I'm like, well, I'm the one that takes a risk. I was like, I've been audited twice. And I told one of the guys, I was like, the times I've been audited, I've been fighting the IRS personally. I said, I didn't hand it over to my accountant, like, okay, you go handle it. And be like, yeah, I get that that's the case. The first time I got audited, I did my own taxes, and I didn't pay anything. All right, so I was young. I got audited when I was young, and then 2008 I got audited again, and I was transiting into a new accountant at the time, because the account that I had at the time was affiliated with a partner of mine, and the guy ended up selling his business and so on and so on. So my original accountant went away. I had this new one that I had, I said, for about 20 years, and he couldn't help me. So I ended up having to fight the IRS at that point too, at $258,000. That's a hell of a tax bill. So got it down to 6. Pretty good. All right. But so I know the rule. I know the rules based upon this particular bracket inside of what they're looking for, and then how, if the IRS flexes on you, you tell them this is what you tell them. And again, this isn't advice. It's just, I could talk about these things behind the paywall, but because it's on you. You're the one that are going to be responsible for doing it. Now, some accountants do know this, and that's why people are successful, and other people just pay out the ass because they're too afraid because of the risk. So at any rate, where I am right now is I'm on the hunt for finding, that's what this is creating the reservoir and finding business professionals that understand that we're in frontier land, that are interested in going into this new space, and are willing to, like flex on and take a little bit of risk but put the risk back on, but communally be interested in it. All right. If there's a problem that comes up, you start changing things in real time. All right. So if they change the rules and regulations, you have to pay attention to them. So right now, there really aren't any rules and regulations on crypto, which is great. you can do whatever you want pretty much. And I've heard stories where they say, oh, they're going to retroactively go back on you and all this other business, and be like, no, they're not. Mark my words, they will retroactively go after you, but they can only do that. They have to have a kind of line in the sand to be able to do that. All right. And from what I understand, is that there is not a the future. There's kind of a deadline, and the deadline is actually it's directly associated with digital identification. If they can't digitally, the whole system runs on digital identification. Are you really you? All right. So that will set the precedent. If we can get everybody on board and flip this switch, and the not only just the United States, but worldwide, these westernized countries are inside of a digital identification framework, then you could pin it on them. But until that happens, there's no way of the new system. When they switch over into this new digital system, which is all the crypto base and trying to get everybody to be accountable for the digital transactions and so on, because everything's going to be digital, you have to marry up a human being into the digital system. So in order for that to happen, you have to hit critical mass for that to happen. It's like, all right, well, when's that date? From what we have found, there was a date that was given out. It was 2028 at the Digital Assets at Duke conference. And then, I jot the note down, and then I go back and I start talking to people and asking, how this is going to work, because if there isn't any retroactive repercussions based upon the activities and things like that were going on, basically you can use this time right now to clean everything up and like whitelist your accounts and make sure everything is all accounted for, and get them into like an accounting system, clean everything all up, and then moving in, past the 2028 zone, they would be able to go after you because they've switched on the digital system. Like, it's basically waiting and getting the identifications out of the state hands, out of the local hands, and moving it onto an international level. So if you're going to, since crypto is international, how would you be able to go after people on a localized level, see, like international level? So you have to have like a continuity between both of them when it starts with the identification. So that's supposed to be around 2028. And that's when you're going to see, major havoc between now to whenever this digital critical mass moment happens, when the United States comes on board and is about 90% compliant on the digital side for identification. That's really the big thing that they're really driving towards, and that's why there is no legislative, regulatory elements that are associated with it, is what I've been told. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. So upper levels, the bankers and all these guys, they could care less. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff. None of it matters. They're just building their systems and they're accounting for it the best that they can. But because there is no regulatory framework, if they make a mistake, it's not a big deal. From that point forward, if like today it says nothing and tomorrow they pass a rule, that means that everything before that date is you can't go after the people because you had no rules. See? You can't retroactively, if Wild West, there's no rules in the town, it's Wild West rules, and somebody shoots somebody in the street, and then now, like, are they prosecuting murders that had happened in the past? Like, they don't do that. They don't do that because it would just be endless, right? They need to have like a clean line of delineation from the old to the new, legacy of the new system, and then they move forward. And it's like, but that's a certain amount of risk because people that know, they're like, oh, I just don't want to deal with it. It creates an environment where professionals and institutional environments do not want to take the chance, and they don't want to deal with a headache. When you're dealing with somebody who's older, that has a business professional environment, that has been doing it for 15, 20 years, and is dealing with they have a spouse, they have whatever, a spouse, a mate, they children, soccer practice, or the coach of that. They've got a lot of fires burning. Their parents are getting to be a pain in the ass, etc. They have all these things that are going on in their life, and the last thing they need to do is take on the IRS and take on the federal government or take on the rules of this international. Who the hell is going to do that, right? So, but for me, I'm looking at it from a different aspect. I'm looking at it like, okay, this is frontier land. Be like, this is exciting. This is great. So, like, since they haven't said that you can't, that means that you can. If there's no rules and regulations out there that say that you can't do it, well, then technically you can. Be like, be like, well, okay. They just did this shit with the Epstein thing. All right. So I talked about this in one of my videos. I said, when this all started bubbling up, I said, I was like, well, I was talking to somebody like, they can't prosecute these guys. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I said the territory, the environment, and I said in which this stuff happened. I said it's overseas. I said it's like it's a U.S. Virgin Island. I said, but it doesn't have the same rules as it does. Like you can't travel if you can travel in there and not get your passport stamped, which means that you were never there. People are like, what? I'm like, yeah. I said, but if you come back into the States, they have to stamp your passport. So if you've ever gone cross-border, that proves that that's the transaction from you from, like, say, Germany to France or the United States to wherever you're going. And they stamp it. And it just means like your cargo, you're a shipment. You're a cargo from this country to that country. And I said, in that particular island of whatever the hell happened on that island, there's no way to prove it because there's no way to identify. Pictures, you get all the pictures you want. Be like, those are damning. But at the end of the day, be like, where do you prosecute it? Did it happen where did it happen? It's in a gray zone. Do you see? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And that's why nothing happens. People are like, why aren't they going after these people? Because there's no way to prosecute it in law. And these people that run this planet and set these rules up for everybody, they know how this works. So we're in the same thing in a very twisted way. We're in the same way setting up for this digital space to be the same thing. They have demonized it. They've done all this fear mongering and all these tactics to get everybody to like not look at it. And I'm looking at it like, well, there's a reason why, where there's smoke, there's fire. But whenever these upper echelon administrators do this type of behavior, historically speaking, that is a gigantic opportunity. And this is years ago. I'm like, I don't know how they're doing it or what this is going on, but I'm going to keep looking at it and try to find some kind of a mechanism on, what they're actually really doing. Like, what is the advantage to it? Is it just sitting on the shit and putting in your wallet and being like, I'm just going to wait till it goes to $1 million? Being like, that's not what they're doing. All right. They're transacting like lightning and there's no taxation on it. Because they're not reporting it because it's treated as property if they're set up correctly. This isn't for some personal guy. This is on a business, on a corporate level. And I said, because it's not defined. I said, as simple as that. I said, on the personal level, I'm like, yeah, you're on the hook. I said, it's not freedom money. I said, but from a corporate level, I said that it just because it's not defined. I said, so anyway, it's basically the directive that we're going. And is it's going to go on forever? And people are like, no, probably not. So during this period where it's the frontier land, I'm going to do as much of it as I can. Until they say I can't, I'm going to go do it. All right? As simple as that. And if I get something in the mail and you get audited and be like, okay, you whacked me on the head. Great. Be like, what do I owe you? Right? But I'm not going into a risk environment where I'm taking all of my profits and proceeds and then spending them on Lambos and a bunch of shit that I'm not, in the future. But it's actually going into physical assets. So even if I said to one of the guys, like, even if something bad happens, I said, I'm still invested in real property. I could liquidate the real property to pay the debt. I said, it's as simple as that. I said, or if they come after me, I said, it's in the corporate umbrella anyway. I said, the company would just go kaput and I would just start another company. I said, it's not the end of the world. I said, Jesus, like, I don't know why everybody is so afraid. It's just natural human, it's just the way humans are. So, anyway, we're forging forward, and there's going to be some exciting things. So marrying up to the right tax preparer is going to be really important with this. And then as I grow into the RWA space and as that starts moving, they're going to have to understand and learn as I learn. So the person that ends up getting married into this space is basically, you have a hands-on guy. That's what I told one of the guys. I'm like, I'm your guinea pig. I say, if you want to get into this space, I say, I'm going to be doing this. I said, I'm just trying to find somebody right now that can handle this or is interested in handling it. And a lot of people aren't. They just don't want to deal with it until it's defined. All right, in black and white. And I was like, I totally get it. I totally get it. So this is another thing where if somebody comes across as being an authority on something and they say they're connected and they can't just pick up the phone and get one of their buddies that they've known for 20 years to handle it, they're not an authority. They're not an authority. And that's what's happening right now, is that even though people have been in this crypto for years now, that they are not looking at it. There's information. I said it's very similar to during COVID and the rhetoric and language that was going on. So none of that was real of what they had said. So the vast majority of the population went in the wrong direction, while some of us decided to like, hey, this is not cool. I'm not doing this. I'm going to go in the other direction. And no matter how you were chastised and abused and everything else, you're probably in a better health position than the people that went in that direction. So this is incredibly similar to the same thing. So it's taken a little bit longer to manifest, in this space, the digital space, from the health stuff and the worldwide health things, because there's less people that are involved in it, and the people that are actually really, really heavily involved in the digital crypto space are institutions that already know. And then ultimately the institutions run on handshake deals. I've done videos on the handshake deals, and it's like, if it's internally in Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan or Swift Banking or whatever it is, they know the rules and they know how it works, and they know, like, ultimately that is a huge power, and they know ultimately the government, and even if they do get clipped, they cheat and steal all the time. They're like, I'll just pay the fine. Not a big deal. I'm going to keep doing whatever I am until you guys catch me. That's the way they do it. So I'm like, well, so I'm going to continue to keep forging ahead and find somebody, and I'll keep you guys posted on it. And probably ultimately I'm going to be the one that ends up like carrying all the risk on it, which, again, if you're an innovator and you're moving forward in something and you're a small fry, you're going to have to take on risk. That's the bottom line. If you want it to be spread out to a bunch of other people and take the risk away from you, then that means that you're going to have to be part of a networking group. You're going to have to be and that's what we're doing here, is creating a networking environment of other people that are like, this is kind of interesting. I think I want to kind of get into this. How does this actually work? Is he making money off me? Like, what is this? No, you're creating a networking environment which creates like a fluidity. It's a fluidity inside of business, so that you could just pick up the phone. Like, is this person vetted? Do they understand the rules? Do they know the language? Da, 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 da. And be like, and I don't have to pay. I don't have to go to some creepy ritual meeting, every like twice a week or something. No, you don't have to do that. This isn't a belief system. It's just that they're creating this system that is, it's new to everyone. And because it's so new, we don't have any rules. So be like, all right, so you guys, it's just a free for all, pretty much. Yeah. So, but at a certain point, that's going to be cut off. So, but until that happens, be like, go take advantage of it. That's what I've been trying to tell people. I'm like, but they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I've got a wife and a family and a business, and be like, if something happens, like, I'll be getting in really big trouble. I'm like, well, put in a company. Be like, the corporation, have a multi-owner corporation, and then put it in a company. I said, roll the dice. What are you going to lose? Be like, the company, they're going to go after go do that. That's fine. So, anyway, I'm going to be forging ahead, like I said, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because I've been blabbering for like way too long. And I'm really excited moving forward, and I'll keep you posted whatever else I find. Cheers.